Right, welcome. So today we are actually not working on the Project Fox right here, but we are going to be heading on over to Broke Boy Customs. Yes, we're going to be heading on over to Broke Boy Customs HQ to just lend a hand. We're going to be helping Jose install some coilovers, and I don't know what else he has planned. So with this being said, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's video. So we're here by Broke Boy Customs, and as you can see, Jose is already at it. This is Jose. If you don't know who Jose is, he is an automotive YouTuber who modifies cars and shares his love for everything stance and automotive related with the rest of the world. He is also the founder of Broke Boy Customs and also the owner of Jenny from the Block. And that is his Mark 1 project car, but I think we'll let Jose explain a bit more. So, Jose, I'm going to talk to you for a minute, yeah? Let me interrupt you, yeah?
Time.
Tell me a little bit about the car. What are we working on? What are we looking at right here?
Okay, so for those that don't know, this car I've owned it for about the past 2 years. It's been on the road, but I've decided to make it an actual project. 1996 1.3 carbureted Golf 1. Title aiming for lower static. Shots fired. But yeah, there's a few plans I do have coming up for the car, but we're taking it bit by bit, you know. No mommy and daddy money to sponsor us. So yeah, that's that much here.
Man, I was a bit too eager, couldn't even wait for me. But anyway, we can see one coilover, front right coilover, almost in, already in place. Bolts are getting tightened. As you can see, extended mounts here. You know, for that extra loads when it comes to the static life. So with Jose installing the front coilovers, it was time for me to start tackling the back. So to do that, well, first things first, we need to take off the wheel. And don't worry, I know you can see the threads on the tire are gone. It's looking like a racing slick, but this is, as Jose calls it, his spinning tire. So with this wheel now off the car, we now have access to get to the shock. Now at the bottom of the shock you have two 17s. So to loosen it, what I used was a shifting spanner as well as your usual 17 spanner. Now what you can also use is the spanner and a ratchet with a 17 socket. When it comes to tools, it's really whatever you have to get the job done. So after you remove your bolts and nuts, your shock should then be able to drop down. Now the reason I wasn't loosening anything on top because Jose actually already loosened it, but on the inside of your car you're gonna find this rubber at the back. So what you want to do, you want to lift that, and then you are going to be greeted with a nut being seated on a metal plate. You need to loosen that nut in order to actually get your shock to be able to come down. So you need to remove that nut, and then your shock will be able to be lowered through and you will be able to get your shock out. You are also going to need a shifting spanner to hold the top metal piece in place, because as you rotate the nut that is there, that whole metal shaft will start rotating and that will actually turn your shock. So to avoid that, you actually can loosen the top first and then go down to the bottom, loosen that, because with it being still locked in place, with it having the nut and bolt through it at the bottom, that shaft won't rotate as easily and it will just make it a bit more of a simple process. So my advice to you, start at the top and work your way down. Now as you see, I was having a bit of trouble because the shock actually dropped straight through, so it was giving me a bit of an uphill to actually get it out. So advice, once again, try not to let the shock go through. Hence why I say work from top to bottom, because at least when you pull the nuts and bolts out at the bottom, you still have control over the shock and you're able to just pull it out. Now Jose previously had sleeve overs in his car. So sleeve overs is like a coilover where it has adjustability, but it uses your standard shock. And as you can see, it absolutely chowed these shocks. The shocks are shoeless, they are kaput, they are not working anymore. As you can see, I push it down and yeah, there's no return. These shocks are absolutely done for. So instead of dealing with your normal shocks and springs, he decides just go and get some JOM Redline Coilovers and slap these bad boys onto his project car. And one thing I must say, they do, there's just something about brand new car parts that's just it's like Christmas Day. Now to install the coilover, you're gonna use the same process you use to remove the standard shock, just in reverse. So you wanna get it slotted into position. You wanna put the bolts and nuts in at the bottom. Then once you have that in, fully tighten it. Then you can grab a jack to just help assist as to lift the rear axle to then push the shock up into place. Then with the jack holding the axle up, you can then tighten your top nuts, washer, and after doing so, this is going to be your coilover in place. Now that is not what we did, because we had both wheels off, so the whole back axle just dropped down. So I then went on over to the left hand side and pulled out the standard shock and put the coilover in. Now because we didn't have an extra jack, I had the left side, Jose had the right side, and we grabbed the axles and proceeded to lift it up and get the coilover slotted into position. And with the axle just being raised, I was able to get the top washer and top nuts on, tighten it, and just have the rear axle and both coilovers put into position. And with the coilovers now being done, we can slap on the rear wheels. And once we do that, we can then drop the car and then focus our attention on the front left hand side. Now if there's a will, there's a way. If there's a job to be done, there's a way to do it. And if you don't have the tools, you can always make a plan. Just like what we're doing right here, we have a shifting spanner and we're using the wheel spanner to remove the bolts that connect the hub to the shock. So we're going to be removing those now. Those are two nuts and bolts that hold the hub to the shock. So we remove those and then we should be able to just get the shock out of place. Now on top, you have a single nut that keeps the shock in place. So once you release or remove this nut, then your shock will then want to drop out of place. So you do need to just hold it, keep a firm grip on your shock, because once you remove this nut, well, your shock is gonna want to start dropping out. So once the nut is removed, you can just pull it. It may need a bit of force, it may not, and that is gonna be your shock out. So as you can see, that is one worn shock out and now ready for the coilover to go in. But before we start installing the coilover, we need to remove the top mounts, the top saddle, whatever you want to call it. That's what needs to be removed. So it is 2 13s on either side, and once those are removed, well, then your top saddle is then gonna drop out.
Unless you fell straight down. This is what not to do. Don't lose your bolts and nuts.
So after locating the missing nut, we then dropped out the saddle, and once that was out of the way, it was time to start modifying it. Because now with us installing top mount spaces, well, you can't actually put on the standard mount. Now you see, with the standard saddle mount, it comes under the shock tower, and you see the 2 studs that come through from underneath. So you don't actually need those studs, so you need to remove them. Because as you can see, with the top mount spacer that you get, you should get longer bolts that actually go from underneath through the spacer and then through the mount. And that is now how you actually connect your saddle mount onto your spacer and then onto the car. So we need to get rid of these studs. And to do so, well, you just need to hit them out. So what I was using was a brick. You can be more civilized and use a hammer, but honestly we never had a hammer, so a brick did the job. And as you can see, the studs are out. Now when it comes to installing your top mount spacer, I don't know if they're all the same, but the one that we got comes with a metal plate. Now to install this, it's going to be very similar to you just installing the standard top saddle. You're going to want to bring it in from underneath. So you're going to want to line that up, and then from there you're going to grab your bolts. You're going to push it up through the hole. Then from there you want to grab your rubber top mount spacer, and then you're going to push it over the bolt, and that way it's actually going to act like a locking system. Okay, locking system is a bit too extra, but it's basically going to hold the bolt in place, so it's not going to keep dropping down, as the rubber is going to keep it tightly in place and it won't start slipping. This way you will then be able to grab your second bolt, push it up through that hole, and then you're going to be ready for your top mount. And to install said top mount, well, you're just going to put it over the bolts that you have now pushed through. So once your top mount is in position, you can then grab the nuts that have been provided and begin to tighten down and keep your top saddle mount in position. So that is now your extended top mount being installed. So with this in place, we can now grab our coilover and start slotting it in. This is what the underneath of your shock tower should look like. As you can see, this is the metal support brace that has been installed underneath. Now Jose also installed some hood raisers to just give some extra clearance now with the extended top mounts in place. And the hood raisers come from bespoke prototyping. So if you're looking for any small parts that you may be looking for, so check their website out and see, maybe they have something that you are looking for. So with that in place, you can then take your coilover and begin to mount it. So all you gotta do, lift it up, get your top nuts and begin to tighten it. Now don't come at me in the comment section. I can see and I know that the top mount spacer and everything isn't tightly done, but I'll more to just mock up and see, okay, everything is where it needs to be. So we're gonna tighten everything. After this, we did go in and tighten all the bolts. So from there, when it comes to coilovers, there is something you need to make sure of, and that is that you are at equal ride heights, because you can't have one side higher than the other, because then the ride is going to be completely off. So as you can see what Jose is doing here, he grabbed a pin and he's just counting the threads to make sure that it is equal right round, to make sure it has an even ride. And as you can see, Jose's coilover was a lot higher than it needed to be, so he needed to then drop it down to get it to that even spot.
And the fact that it's not bottomed out. Lock the coilover and tighten. Right.
So the next thing to do was then to tighten the two bolts and nuts that run through and connect the hub to the shock. So after tightening those bolts, it was then time to grab the wheel, put it on, and then lower it down to the ground to see now how low the car actually is. And let me know in the comment sections your thoughts. And keep in mind, the car can go lower. So let me know your thoughts on the fitment so far. And with all this being said, I hope you guys do go on to enjoy this video. And don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more automotive content. And don't forget to check out Jose's channel. That's Broke Boy Customs on YouTube. And with all this being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.